Hi, this is Max from Abstract Automation. Today I'm going to show you how you can use Zoho One to create an ebook download offer and turn it into a lead magnet to get leads into your Zoho CRM. Let's break it down. Okay, so your first step is you need to have an ebook, some sort of useful resource that you can offer to your potential customers that they may be interested, they may get some value in, and they would be willing to give you their email address in order to obtain that resource. So in my case, I'm using an ebook that Zoho has produced regarding some of their AI features. It's a 146-page ebook, it's a PDF file, and I'm going to use this as my lead magnet to attract leads into my database. Today we're going to use a few different Zoho apps inside of Zoho One for this. So first, we need a place to store the ebook file, the PDF file, that is shareable, that anybody can get a link to download the file, and we're going to use Zoho WorkDrive for that. We're also going to use Zoho Forms to create a very simple web form to collect the lead's email address so that they could submit that to us, and then they will eventually get an email sent to them with a clickable link to download the so we're also going to use Zoho Campaigns to do the automation of sending of those emails. And then also Zoho Campaigns will do the work of pushing that lead's email address into Zoho CRM as a new lead record. All right, so let's start with the ebook file. So first thing we need to do is get our PDF file, and I've already copied it into a folder inside of Zoho WorkDrive, and then I make sure that that file has been shared publicly with a public access link. And I'm going to copy that link onto my clipboard and put it aside, and we're going to use that link later on when we compose the email that goes out to the person who filled out the form with the button that they can click to download using that link. So we've got our file uploaded to Zoho WorkDrive, it's shared publicly, and we've got a public link to that file. So that's our step one. Our step two is we need a form using Zoho Forms to collect that information. So in this case, if I flip over to Zoho Forms, I created a very simple Zoho form, a title at the top that says get the free 146-page ebook now, a field for the lead to type in their email address, and then I have a hidden field here for source, and the value is set to ebook download. So what's going to happen is when this lead flows all the way through from Zoho Forms to Zoho Campaigns and then eventually into Zoho CRM, I will have a lead source field on that lead in Zoho CRM with the value ebook download. So I can see when that lead gets created, I'll know where they came from. All right. And one thing I do want to add to this form, which I didn't do earlier, is I would like to add a graphic of the ebook so the form just looks a little bit nicer. So let me go through that real quick and come right back. Okay, so all I did here was I added a description field to my form, and then in the settings of that description, I just inserted the image or the graphic for the ebook. And now my form will look something like this. Okay, very simple form. Now in my case, I'm just going to allow users to visit the form directly, and so the page will look exactly like this when they land on it. If you want, you can embed the form on a landing page, maybe on your website or something, to give a little bit more context to the form. In this case, I'm just keeping it simple, and all we have is a graphic of the ebook, a spot for them to put in their email address, and then a button to click to get their ebook. So how do we connect this to Zoho Campaigns? So first, what you want to do is in Zoho Campaigns, you will need to create a new mailing list in Zoho Campaigns specific to the ebook process. So here we are in Zoho Campaigns. I already have a mailing list created for this use case. If you need to create a new mailing list, it's very easy. Just click Create List, give it a name, click Save, and you'll have a new contact list in Zoho Campaigns that is ready to be used. In this case, it's the ebook offer list that I have here. There are currently no contacts in this list. So now I have to tie this in with my form in Zoho Forms. So back over in Zoho Forms, on my form, I go to the Integrations tab, and you will have an option down the left-hand side for Zoho Campaigns. Now, I've already wired this up, but it's very simple. You essentially pick the Zoho Campaigns instance that you're using based on your organization, which will 9 out of 10 times will just come up automatically. You pick which mailing list you would like this form entry to land in. So in this case, it's the new mailing list that I just created, the ebook offer list. You can select to add a topic or associate a topic with the email address that comes in or the new contact that comes into Zoho Campaigns. In this case, I'm not doing that. And then you map your fields. So we are mapping the Zoho Campaigns contact email address with the your email address field. And then we are also mapping that hidden field that I created for the source for the ebook download source. And then you save the integration. That's it. All right, so now, so far we're collecting someone's email address, and that person is coming into Zoho Campaigns into a new mailing list. So now what's next? So what's next now is we need to automate a few things. And we're going to do all of that inside of Zoho Campaigns using a workflow automation. So back over in Zoho Campaigns, there's an automation section, and you will see all the automation workflows that you may have already created in your Zoho Campaigns. Now, in this case, I already created the workflow that does all the work that I'm talking about in this video. So why don't we just take a quick look at that already built workflow so you can understand the pieces, and then I'll describe how it was built. So we have this email offer workflow, and I'm going to go ahead and edit this workflow so that we can see some of the details of the components there. So the workflow runs from top to bottom. It's like a flow chart. And the workflow starts on list entry into the list that we have dedicated for this process. So as soon as a contact lands in this list, which will happen within a few seconds of that person filling out that form, this workflow will kick off. So the next thing it does is it sends an internal email notification to me, alerting me that somebody signed up for the ebook. I just want to know that that's happening. I don't necessarily reach out to the person right away. It's just a way for me to kind of be aware of whether this ebook offer is getting any kind of traction, right? So I will get an email in my inbox. It's just a very simple notification email from Zoho Campaigns just to alert me of that happening. Then immediately after that, the email goes out to the person who filled in the form with the clickable download to get the ebook. So let's take a look at that. So this is the email that would go out to the person just within a few seconds after they fill out that form. So it's a pretty straightforward email. I'm not going to go over all the particulars of how to build out an email campaign or email template in Zoho Campaigns in this video, but you're essentially going to design the email message. And the key here is that the button that you add to your email will have to have the link that I copied to my clipboard earlier from the WorkDrive file. That's the shareable link, right? So that's a public link. Anybody can click on that link to get that file, and then you paste that link into the button URL for the recipient to be able to download the PDF. All right, so now what happens if the user clicks and downloads that PDF? Well, obviously they will get the PDF that they wanted, so that's all good. But then I want a few things to happen internally in my system after they've clicked and downloaded that button. And so the two things that I have configured in the remainder of this workflow are once they click this link, so here's the trigger for that link, they get a 10-point score added to their lead score in Zoho Campaigns. So if you're not familiar with lead scoring, basically it's a way to track who or which contacts are most engaged with your messaging versus ones that are least engaged. So you create a scoring system and you do plus and minus points based on certain things. So if somebody opens an email, they might get a +5. If somebody clicks a link to download a file, they might get a +10. And so over time, you will be able to rank your contacts by the most engaged versus the least engaged, and that might help various efforts in the future. So I'm adding a +10 if they download the PDF. That's one. Next, what's happening is after the score is bumped by an extra 10 points, I want to then push that person's email address into my Zoho CRM as a new lead. And so the way that we do that is we go into, or there's an action option over here, push data to Zoho CRM. And if we look at the details of this, what we're doing here is we are pushing the lead over to Zoho CRM, including the lead source for the ebook download. So one thing to be aware of here is there are often certain fields that are required fields in the lead module. So for example, lead's last name and company name may be required fields in your Zoho CRM. And if that's the case, if we don't somehow populate those fields as part of this workflow, that lead will get rejected and will not get created in the CRM. So there's a couple of workarounds here you can do to make that happen. So one would be you could simply add the additional fields to your form and capture the person's, not just their email address, but have fields in here for their company name, their first name, their last name, map those fields to your Zoho Campaigns contact fields, and then eventually those will flow through to your Zoho CRM. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to put hidden fields on the form and just assign generic static values. You have to weigh the pros and the cons of asking somebody for more information and that possibly deterring them from going through with the request for the ebook. In other words, you just ask someone for their email address, they might be more likely to give that one little piece of information up compared to asking them for their company name, their first name, their last name, phone number, a bunch of other information. They may be less likely to move forward with submitting the form if they're required to fill in more information. So the way that I play it is I just map very generic values to that new lead, you know, last name ebook, first name ebook, company name ebook download, like whatever it is, but I'm getting that real email address from that person. And if I gain any traction with that person in future marketing efforts, I might be able to track them down. Maybe I can find them on LinkedIn based on their email address or domain or website or whatever, and try to enrich some data and get information about that lead without specifically asking them for those details. So anyway, in your workflow, you map the fields between Zoho CRM and Zoho Campaigns, and that is it. Once somebody comes to that form, oh, I guess lastly, you have to get people to the form. That's the other part too. So what you may want to do is whatever your social media or advertising channels are, you'll make sure that you have a link to that form that people can click on and see. Again, you might want to create a specific landing page on your website for that purpose. But if you post an offer on LinkedIn, here's a link to get an ebook. People click on it, it'll bring them to the landing page. They fill out the form, they're in your Zoho Campaigns, they get pushed over to Zoho CRM, and the whole thing works like that. All right. So I hope this helps, and good luck, and have a great day.